Hannity Colmes, we get right to our top story tonight, and it is the remarkable fallout from last night's Democratic debate. The most talked about moment came when George Stephanopoulos asked Senator Obama about his relationship with admitted unrepentant terrorist William Ayers.
It's a gentleman named William Ayers. He was part of the Weather Underground in the 1970s. They bombed the Pentagon, the Capitol, and other buildings. He's never apologized for that. And in fact, on 9/11, he was quoted in the New York Times saying, "I don't regret setting bombs. I feel we didn't do enough." An early organizing meeting for your state Senate campaign was held at his house, and your campaign has said you were friendly. Can you explain that relationship for the voters and explain to Democrats why it won't be a problem?
George, but this is an example of what I'm talking about. This is a guy who lives in my neighborhood, who's a professor of English in Chicago, who I know and who I have not received some official endorsement from. He's not somebody who I exchange ideas from on a regular basis. And the notion that somehow as a consequence of me knowing somebody who engaged in detestable acts 40 years ago when I was 8 years old somehow reflects on me and my values doesn't make much sense, George.
Now, it has been an issue that we have been telling you about on this program for weeks, and for the first time, Senator Obama was asked about it himself. Now, of course, the liberal blogs, they're losing their minds today, in part because I suggested the question to George Stephanopoulos Tuesday afternoon on my radio show. There are two questions that I don't think anybody has asked Barack Obama, and I don't know if this is going to be on your list tomorrow. One is the only time he's ever been asked about his association with Bill Ayers, the unrepentant terrorist from the Weather Underground, who on 9/11 of all days in the New York Times was saying, "I don't regret setting bombs. I don't think we did enough." When asked about it by the Politico, David Axelrod said they have a friendly relationship, and that they had done a number of speeches together, and that they sat on a board together. Is that a question you might ask?
Well, I'm taking notes right now.
I think that's an interesting question that nobody in the media has really brought up. We've highlighted a little bit more here on this program, but let me see if I can help you. You want any more questions?
Yeah, keep going.
All right, but what difference does it make where the question came from? Now, Hillary Clinton thought it was an important issue and weighed in on it last night.
I also believe that Senator Obama served on a board with Mr. Ayers for a period of time, the Woods Foundation, which was a paid directorship position. And if I'm not mistaken, that relationship with Mr. Ayers on this board continued after 9/11 and after his reported comments, which were deeply hurtful to people in New York. And I would hope to every American, because they were published on 9/11, and he said that he was just sorry they hadn't done more. And what they did was set bombs, and in some instances people died. So it is, you know, I think it is, again, an issue that people will be asking about.
And for all the whining from his supporters, Obama appeared ready with a rebuttal last night, meaning that somewhere one of his aides must have thought it was an issue worth prepping him for.
By Senator Clinton's own vetting standards, I don't think she would make it, since President Clinton pardoned or commuted the sentences of 2 members of the Weather Underground, which I think is a slightly more significant act than me serving on a board with somebody for actions that he did 40 years ago.
Now, before the debate was over, both campaigns were blasting the press corps with emails about Ayers and the Weather Underground, meaning that they were ready for it. So if last night's debate had featured Republicans, the left-wingers, well, they'd be doing cartwheels today, but because their favorite candidate came off looking smug and unprepared, they're going nuts today. Joining us now with a lot more on last night's debate is former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer, Democratic strategist Steve Elmendorf, former Congressman John Kasich, and Democratic strategist Michael Brown. All right, John Kasich, let me start with you. I have in my hands Barack Obama from his website, fact-checked on the relationship with Bill Ayers. It's the reality. He's 8 years old when this happened. After all, he was just an English professor. Here's the problem. Is that
I'm wondering why he was an English professor to begin with, you know.
Good point. But they gave speeches together. They gave speeches even after he showed in 2001 he was unrepentant. It's the question of why you would be friends with a man that wished he didn't do more and was proud that he bombed the Pentagon, the Capitol, and New York City Police headquarters. Isn't that the issue?
Sean, there isn't any question if Barack Obama is the nominee, come the fall, people are going to hear about this in a big, major way. It's not just going to be on Fox News and you reporting it and Stephanopoulos asks a question, and I think George is a very fair guy. You know, the bottom line is between the Reverend Wright and now Bill Ayers, and they're going to dig more, the Chicago developer, you better believe that these independent 527 groups are going to bring this right into the living room of every mother and father in this country, and I believe it's going to have a dramatic impact, Sean, and I don't think there's any getting around it. And that's just not a Republican point of view. You've got to remember, I'm born and raised in blue-collar McKees Rocks outside of Pittsburgh, mailman's son. I can tell you it doesn't fly with Democrats or Republicans.
Steve, I guess the question is, because I'm reading this defense on his website, and it tells me that he doesn't get it and he doesn't fully understand the nature of this. If somebody admitted to bombing the Pentagon, and I don't regret setting the bombs, I didn't think we did enough, would you sit on a board with that person knowing that background? Would you give speeches to him after he made those comments that he was unrepentant? Do you think any candidate for president that they're complaining about the question should complain about that? Isn't that something we need to know about?
I agree. Look, I think he's been whining, his campaign's been whining all day that they got asked hard questions. He's running for president of the United States. And you're going to get asked a lot harder questions if you become the Democratic nominee for president. And as my friend John Kasich said, you're going to get hit hard by the other side. So I think this whole experience has been very good for both campaigns to get them ready for a tough general election.
Let me go to Michael Brown on this. Michael, I think he put it very well last night. It's a guy who lives in his neighborhood. He hasn't endorsed Obama. They don't regularly talk. They happen to know each other. The kids may have gone to the same schools. He did something detestable 40 years ago when he was 8, and somehow that's supposed to reflect on Obama's values and should have anything to do with his presidential campaign. What do you say, Michael?
Well, Alan, I think this is a twofold issue. First of all, it's interesting how the press all of a sudden is now trying to knock Senator Obama down. For months, if not for almost a year and a half, he's kind of been the angel and the darling of the media. Now all of a sudden the conservative press want to take real big shots at him. The other problem is that when you've had that kind of honeymoon with the press, it's very difficult to deal with tough questions at the end of the game. And that's, I think, what you're seeing now.
But is this a real issue? Should this be a real issue, Michael, in the campaign?
Well, it's one of those things. Senator Clinton gets tough questions every day. Even Chelsea Clinton gets tough questions every day. And that's part of running for president. It's a tough business. It's a tough life, and that's what you sign up for.
Harry, it took 50 minutes to get into substantive issues in the last night's debate, to talk about issues like health care, Iraq, the economy, and things that I would believe the American people are concerned about in terms of who should become the next president to deal with those issues. Isn't this Ayers thing a diversion from that?
Well, the problem is that Barack Obama is largely a blank slate. He's a state senator for the most of his career. People know very little about him. So it is fair to say, who has he surrounded himself with? Who are his friends? All of this helps you define
they're not really friends. They're acquaintances.
He is. Well, they serve on a board. And
so
what worries me the most about this, Alan, is you potentially could carve this out because it happened when he was 8 and he had nothing to do with it. But in 2001, when somebody says something like that and you serve on a board with him, this is recent. This is modern.
Well, because
and
two people serve on a board
with said that he didn't do enough bombings, I'd say that person should be removed.
What does it have to do? Well, that's up to the foundation. That was the Woods Foundation. Barack Obama didn't get to decide who sits on the board.
Of course,
so why don't you blame the foundation for not removing him?
If you serve on a board, you have a right to say that this other person should be removed from the board. It's a statement of what you believe is right and what is wrong.
Well,
What's troubling is Barack Obama has now had a pattern of people he associates with who define wrongdoing, and he doesn't stand up to them. That's what's troubling.
We disagree on that, but we'll continue with our panel in just a moment. More after the break. It's still to come, the Obama-Clinton debate.